Why is everyone talking about Canson Velvet? Is this new pastel surface really a game changer or just another trend? In this video, I'm putting it to the test. I'll share my honest thoughts as I experiment, make discoveries, and find out what all the buzz is about. Is Canson Velvet the next big thing for pastel artists? Let's dive in and see. Hello artists, welcome to Monet Cafe Studio, and hi to my patrons on my Patreon page. I am bringing you a review of a product and a painting tutorial of a product that I've never used before. And it's one that many pastel artists have been talking about. It's called Canson Velvet. And there are many Canson products that are used for pastel painting. One is just Canson Mitons. It's an unsanded pastel paper. It's not water friendly. It doesn't allow for a lot of layering, but it's quite affordable. So that's a great one. There's Canson Touch, which has a little bit of a sanded surface, and that's a great one. There's Canson XL. There's all kinds of different products. But lots of people have been talking about this one because it allows for a lot of pastel layering, I hear, and also it is water friendly. And I like a pastel surface that's water friendly because I love doing underpaintings in watercolor or acrylic ink. So I'm excited to give that a try. So when I took one of these pages out of the pad, I noticed something interesting about it. It reminds me a lot of Pastel Matte, if you've ever tried Pastel Matte by Claire Fontaine. And the thing about it that reminds me of it is it's not sanded like a lot of sanded papers are for pastel painting. They're almost like hardware store sandpaper with grit or texture. And this one, it doesn't really have the texture. It reminds me again of Pastel Matte, which also doesn't have that sand grain. The other thing is that the back of it is kind of plasticky, if that's a word. It feels not paper. It feels more like plastic. So I'm thinking this is going to be a really durable paper too. So I'm going to try a few different things on it, and I'm excited to show you what I discover. I first want to show you some of the size options and the color options. I like to buy this in pads. It is available in single sheets, and I'll have the product links in the description of this video. But there's a smaller pad that's 9.4 inches by 12.6 inches and a larger pad that's 12.6 by 16.1 inches. And that's the one that I'm using, is the larger one. Now here's one of the colors. It comes in these beautiful, cool blue colors, but the blues they're pretty dark. So if you like working on dark surfaces, this would be a good one. And you can see the price. This is the smaller pad. It was like $31. And now I'll show you the one that I'm using today. It's the larger pad, and it is the cream color. It's called Cream White. And I often like getting a surface that's lighter like this for the very reason I'm going to be talking about soon. I like to do underpaintings and tone my surface. And you can't really do that with the dark surfaces, but you could see the pricing of the larger pads is almost $50. Canson Velvet is also available with a black surface. Another pad has an option for colors called gray tones, and one more on Dick Blick, it's called brown tones. But again, I'm using the cream white because it really is the best if you're going to do an underpainting like you'll see me do in these examples. All right, it's time to experiment. So I have Bob Ross here for support, and whenever I try a new surface, I want to do a little experimenting on it before I just start a serious painting. So I've got 5 products here that I'm going to experiment with, and I wanted to bring you along with me. The first one is just water. The surface is water friendly, so I want to see how it behaves. I also like to use rubbing alcohol. This is one of my favorite blending mediums. It's Airbrush Medium by Golden. And often I will use acrylic ink for an underpainting, so I thought I'd give that a try. And last but not least is watercolor. I really love doing watercolor underpaintings. So now it's time to put this paper to the test. I grabbed my little palette tray just to have a few colors to choose from. And before I go to the wet mediums, I wanted to try blending dry. Often I like to just layer some pastel down and use a blending tool. And in this case, I'm going to try 2 different types of blending tools. One is pipe foam insulation. I'll share more about what that is. And the other is just a chamois cloth, the kind that you use to dry your cars. And I cut them in little squares. And now I'm going to lay down some soft pastel. This is literally the first time I'm trying anything on this surface. I love this pretty turquoise color. So I'm just going to feel and witness how it layers on this paper, how the strokes are on this paper, and I could instantly tell I love it. The application is very smooth and very receiving of the pastels. I'm starting first with the pipe foam insulation, and I just cut it in little squares. It's literally what you can get at a hardware store, and I have one side that I kind of prefer, and it blended just fine, not as smoothly as some surfaces. And now I'm trying the chamois cloth. I got a big piece of this at the dollar store, and I have never had to buy another piece. And oh my goodness, I really loved how this blended. But you know, with pastels and layering, you often have to layer quite a few colors before things start to kind of meld and blend together. So now I'm layering a little bit of this golden yellowy color, and I'm zooming in so you can see it. And I love the layering capability of the surface. Now I will share, I'm doing a voiceover now, and I have since created the painting tutorial that I'll be sharing, and I have been able to experience how it receives so many layers. But what I love is how, you see how the turquoise is showing through this golden color, and it's just really the way you want the pastels to behave. And now I'm going to add a third layer. I chose this beautiful pink, kind of peachy color. And what I look for or long for in a pastel surface is to layer colors in a way to where the colors interact with each other. And just what I was saying before, all the colors are kind of peeking through each other. And you can literally create new colors, almost like mixing wet mediums, by doing it this way, by having the correct surface that allows for this type of layering. And now it's time to play with adding some liquid to this surface. I'm going to basically create 4 of the same layers of colors. I want to have all of them equal, in other words, an apples to apples comparison. So the first liquid I'm using is water, and I often talk about this in my tutorials, where if you wet pastels, they become paint. It's a dry medium, pastels, soft pastels are, and when you wet them, you are just liquefying them. You're turning them into paint. And so I just brushed this over the surface. You can see how it turned a little bit green. That's how I was saying how the colors will mix and blend, and the water worked just fine. I realized that not only do I want to demonstrate applying these wet products to these blended samples that I've given, I also want to make a single color. So I'm just going to go ahead and make 4 samples of this beautiful purple. Isn't that gorgeous? So I'm now going to be applying all of these different wet substances to each of these. Therefore, now I'm going to use just the water alone to blend on the swatch of this gorgeous purple color. And I'm pulling it out a bit so you can see how the color moves. And just as I was mentioning, water basically turns the pastel into paint. It also sort of sets the pastel into the paper. Almost like you gain back an additional layer by wetting pastels in this way. And this works the same for all of these wet mediums that I'm going to be applying. The second one is rubbing alcohol. I use rubbing alcohol a lot when I do this liquefaction process with pastels versus water. I find it does behave a little differently, but I also like the fact that it dries faster. And especially if I'm doing a demonstration, it's nice to have it just go ahead and dry up for me to apply pastels on top of. So now I'm just cleaning my brush a little bit, and I'm dipping it into the alcohol, and we're going to see if this behaves any differently than just the water alone. First, I'm rubbing it across the blended 3 colors, and it behaved almost exactly like the water. In a minute, I do go and clean out my water, so I do have a fresh brush, but I'm wiping it off a lot just to get most of that color out of there. So now I have just the alcohol again, and I'm going to move it across this beautiful purple. And using it on the single color like this, I could tell I really do like the alcohol better than the water. It seemed to blend a little more consistently, and like I said, it dries faster. So unless you just don't like the smell of alcohol, that might be the best bet out of the 2. And next I'm going to use the airbrush medium, and I have a video on this particular product, and I explained in the video, oh, it was a little dried up, it was squirting everywhere, about why I really prefer this over some other products for blending pastels like this. And I think it's because it really does liquefy the pastels in a way to where it just blends so smoothly. And I think you'll see what I mean. So first I'm going to just do it on the three colors. Notice also too with that how it did not turn as green. So there's something about this product that behaves differently. And I think you'll really see it when I apply it just to the single purple color alone. So I just get a decent amount on my brush and I just blend it across, and watch when I get a few more strokes in. Can you see how it blended the color in a way to where it doesn't have as many striations or inconsistencies in it? It just makes it such a smooth application. So it is really one of my favorite ways to liquefy pastels. Now, the last two swatches down there, I'm just going to show again the blending. I'm going to be using the acrylic ink and the watercolor separately. So let's get that chamois cloth again, since that was my favorite blending one out of the two. And I'm just going to use it to blend this purple one alone, and look at the softness. So I do prefer dry blending often to wet blending, and it's often when I'm trying to create a painting that has really a soft effect or soft edges. So there are different advantages to both wetting pastels or blending dry. All right, let's move on to the other products. Acrylic ink is a favorite product of mine to do underpaintings on soft pastel surfaces that are water friendly. So I just put a few drops of this beautiful color called Purple Lake. It makes a really nice dark, but if you add water to it, it lightens up a bit, as you can see here. So I was just playing around with a full strength application and then one that was more diluted. And I loved how it applied. And I found that it applied different than Pastel Matte. Pastel Matte, almost when you apply some water-based mediums, it can have a bleed effect or almost like a bloom effect. I didn't find that happening with this Canson Velvet. Now, this is just a little set of watercolors. I think it's called My Lang. It's a favorite little set of mine. It's on Amazon. I'll try to include this product link in the description. But I'm just applying, I've sped this up because I'm doing like 3 or 4 different colors here, applying it full strength again, or, not as diluted. And then I'm adding water and lightening up the strokes just to see how it blends. And oh my goodness, I loved how smoothly and consistently the watercolor applied. So it's what I actually decided to use for the underpainting for this final painting. And if you're a patron on my Patreon page, you will be getting this full tutorial where I will take you step by step through all of the techniques that I use and the entire painting process. This is one of my favorite tutorials that I'm offering. I just love it when I can give you so much information that will take even brand new pastel artists to new levels. I hope that was helpful for you, artists, and you can find all of the product links in the description of this video. I encourage you to become a patron of mine if you'd like more content and all the goodies I'm always talking about. And of course, subscribe if you haven't already. All right, everyone, God bless and happy painting.